Play VGC, where you can fight all of your favorite Pokemon, such as Charizard, and Charizard.
Yeah, if you're like me, you're probably tired of seeing Charizard and the same old Pokemon every other game on ladder. So when I heard of a tournament that was going to ban Charizard, you know I had to hop in on it. But it wasn't just Charizard that was being banned. In fact, all of these Pokemon here were banned. Yep, any Pokemon with over a 0.4% usage rate were banned from this tournament.
It's now illegal.
Welcome to the low usage tournament. So, with all of these powerful Pokemon gone, that leaves the question, how do I build a good team? Well, first, I had to look at the list of remaining Pokemon, and there was one duo that immediately stood out to me, Lycanroc and Hippowdon. Since all other weather setters other than Abomasnow were banned, I could set up the sand uncontested, and Lycanroc can outspeed everything due to Sand Rush and spam Rock Slide. Because of its frail defensive stats, I gave it the Focus Sash. However, I did invest a little bit of bulk into special defense, so it could always survive a 5-hit Water Shuriken from Mega Greninja, who I believed was going to be one of the most popular Megas of the tournament. I gave it close combat for coverage, and for its third move, I went for a devious strategy with the move Endeavor. Endeavor is an attack that brings your opponent's HP down to the same amount as Lycanroc, which will be 1 HP if Lycanroc has been brought down to its Focus Sash. But since the sand is set up, the sand chip will be able to take the last point of health at the end of the turn. Speaking of sand, let's talk Hippowdon. I decided to build it as a Trick Room Sweeper, giving it soft sand to boost its strong ground attacks, Earthquake, and high horsepower. I gave it Curse for setup, and Slack Off for health recovery. And the EVs, I just went 32-32. Boost that attack, boost that HP. Very simple, very clean. So, I got this duo, but notably, the gimmick is Mega Evolution. I gotta figure out what Mega Evolution I was gonna bring. Some of the standout Megas to me that were still left after the bans were Starmie, Chandelure, Greninja, Lucario, Feraligatr, Skarmory, Altaria, Chestnut, Crabominable, Chimecho, and Manectric.
Then Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White and Monty Python and the Holy Grail's Black Knight.
I wanted to consider what would be both good for the meta and what would synergize well together. Out of these Megas, I first chose Mega Altaria, since its unique typing of Dragon and Fairy intrigued me, looking pretty good into many of the other best Megas. It's also one of the best sources of spread fairy damage in this format, with Pixelate boosted Hyper Voice. I gave it Tailwind to help support the rest of the team, and Roost for sustainability. Earlier, I mentioned how I wanted to use Hippowdon as a Trick Room Sweeper, so I wanted my second Mega to be something that could set up Trick Room and take advantage of it. The standout to me was Mega Chimecho for two main reasons. First was its ability Levitate, allowing Hippowdon to Earthquake next to it in Trick Room. The second was that of its Steel Psychic typing. I believe that covered well for some of Altaria's weaknesses like Ice, Fairy, and Steel. For my last two Pokemon, I wanted some good support pieces. I had a few items on my shopping list of things I wanted out of these supports. Damage reduction, speed control, Fake Out, a pivot move, and a way to amplify my Mega's damage output. A Pokemon that fit these criteria was actually one that I feel like many people would overlook. Quillfish. It gets Intimidate for damage reduction, Icy Wind for speed control, and Flip Turn for pivoting. I gave it a Choice Scarf so its Icy Wind can move before my opponents, and rounded out its moveset with Liquidation and Gunk Shot for some offensive power. I opted to invest into attack because I needed some good, strong attackers on this team. I wanted something that could both support and have enough offensive power to deal with some of the threats to Altaria and Chimecho. And lastly, we have Incineroar at home, Liepard, which does a lot of cool things, actually. Fake Out would help me set up Trick Room or Tailwind. It also gets Prankster Encore, which provided a great way to disrupt opponents. I gave it Fake Tears, since it would move first in and out of Trick Room and would amplify my Mega's special attacks. And lastly, Foul Play meant I could do respectable damage without having to invest into my own attack stat, since Foul Play works off the opponent's attack stat instead of your own. Unfortunately, I had already used Focus Sash on Lycanroc, so I gave it a Citrus Berry and hoped that the HP investment I gave it would be enough to keep it alive even though it is very frail. So, the day of the tournament arrived, but first, before I show off how my run went, I want to show kind of the state of the metagame, because I think it's interesting to look like what everyone else was using when they were under these restrictions, and seeing which Pokemon are going to be the best in this type of a format. So these are our top 20 Pokemon. Klefki number 1, Liepard number 2, Chandelure Mega number 3, and Chandelure is our number 1 Mega. Noivern at 4th, Rotom-Mow at 5th, Crocodile at 6th, Starmie Mega at 7th, Floette Eternal at 8th, and you might be asking, well, isn't a Floette banned because it's one of the most used Pokemon? Well, yes, Mega Floette is banned. However, it is still allowed to be in the format without its Mega Stone, so like similarly, technically, even though I clickbaited and said Charizard's not allowed, Charizard is allowed, you just can't Mega it. And then Goodra, Hisui at 9th, that makes sense just due to its good typing and insane bulk, and Arcanine at 10th for Intimidation, you know. It's kind of, we have Incineroar at home. Let's deep dive into like some of the sets they were running. So Klefki, we can see by its movesets, it's run as a support mon, but typically as a screen support mon with that light screen and reflect. It tended to carry Dazzling Gleam, Thunder Wave, Speed Control, but was on about half of them. And then we could start to see some more move variety with like Rain Dance, Trick Room, Foul Play, Sunny Day. Mostly just like whatever the last support move that best fit the team it was on. You know, it was mostly running the Light Clay or occasionally Mental Herb. Pretty much all of them were running Prankster. I guess someone was running Magician in the tournament, since it does have a bit of usage there. I do not know why. And it was typically paired with Mega Starmie, as the Mega was paired with most, but also just for non-Mega Pokemon, it was paired with Noivern and Rotom-Mow, and that makes sense because those are just two of the most popular mons, and Klefki's kind of just a support mon that can go with a lot of different Pokemon. Liepard gets Prankster, it gets Fake Out, it gets Encore, and that's kind of what makes it so good here. It's one of the fastest Fake Outs in the meta. I think Infernape is the big other one that's faster than it, and that did see quite a bit of usage. Mostly run with Focus Sash. Like I said, I wanted to run Focus Sash on my own, but unfortunately I'd already had a Focus Sash on my Lycanroc. Knock off the attacking move of choice. Taunt, Sunny Day, Foul Play. Not a lot of Protect being run on this one. Only 16% of people ran Protect on it, but that just makes sense. You really want to make use of its vast supportive move pool. And it was most commonly paired with Mega Chandelure and Mega Starmie, and then of course Noivern as well, because Noivern is another popular Pokemon. Speaking of Noivern, let's look at Noivern. It's just like the fastest Tailwind setter in this format, you know, no Talonflame, no Whimsicott. It's really, with that 123 base speed, it's gonna be the fastest Tailwind. It's closest you're getting to a Prankster Tailwind. Other than that, it just ran mostly just Draco and Air Slash, just so it had its damage. A couple other moves like Taunt, Sunny Day, and Super Fang were also seen. And like we've seen before, paired often with Chandelure, Klefki, Crocodile, kind of just the usual suspects in this meta. There's a decent amount of item variety, mostly Focus Sash. Around 2/3 of it were Focus Sash, and that makes sense. It's not got the greatest defensive. But some people decide to lean into its offensive potential a little more. I mean, it's only got 97 special attack, but with Draco Meteor and Life Orb, it can start doing respectable damage. And then just a bunch of different miscellaneous items. Interestingly, this has a decent spread of abilities. Some people were using Frisk for some reason, even though this is open team sheets. Most opted for Infiltrator, I imagine just because of the presence of Klefki, that getting around screens was actually going to be really important in this format. But some opted for Telepathy. And one more Pokemon I want to take a look at is that Rotom-Mow. It tended to be run as a Choice Scarf Mon, and often paired with Crocodile to make the powerful Bisquake combo. 20%, only 20% of them were running Discharge, but I imagine a lot of those were on teams with Crocodile. But other than that, it's just kind of like what you'd expect out of a Rotom. But let's look at some of the most common megas. There's 4 megas I want to look at that were in the top 20 of usage. So Chandelure, obviously, that was number 1. Interestingly enough, Heat Wave, 100% of them had Heat Wave, 100% of them had Shadow Ball, 100% of them had Protect, and then the rest of them kind of were split on that last move. But everyone was unanimous on those first 3 moves, which is kind of rare to see in a Pokemon. Some opted for Trick Room, some opted for a Calm Mind setup, some opted for coverage in Energy Ball, and then, yeah, we can kind of see the best teammates are kind of the expected, just most used. Normally Infiltrator isn't a good ability, but again, with Klefki so present in this meta, Infiltrator actually kind of comes into play here, and does make Chandelure a little bit more of a threat than it normally would. And then Starmie. I kind of expected Starmie to be number 1 going into this for Mega Evolutions, but it was number 2. And, just using strong water moves like Liquidation and Aqua Jet, there was kind of a 50-50 split on the Psychic move. Not quite 50-50, some opted to just drop Psychic moves altogether, but some chose Psycho Cut, some chose then Headbutt. Some just opted for Ice Spinner as coverage. Actually run with a lot of Rotom though. I think that makes sense, their typings just cover for each other really well. And we also see it paired with Klefki. I imagine a lot of those Klefkis were running Rain Dance to amplify its damage. And then coming in third for our megas, we had Greninja, which is also kind of expected just due to that high base speed. And believe it or not, Protean is a good ability. And with that speed, it can be a very flexible piece for your team. Most opted to run Dark Pulse, but then the water moves varied a lot. Some went for Hydro Pump, some went for Water Shuriken, Surf. Ice Beam was also pretty common on about half of them, and then just a whole wide variety of different damaging moves, which, makes sense because Protean means they're all going to be stab, so it could kind of be kitted out for the specific needs of the team. It was, again, Klefki at number 1, and that makes sense just because, Klefki can set up Rain, and Greninja does tend to like Rain, but it also just, wants to take advantage of having a little extra bulk due to screens, and since Chandelure is weak to both water and dark, Chandelure having Infiltrator won't be as big of a problem. Interesting enough, it was paired with Gliscor a lot. Now, I'm not exactly sure why. So, maybe let me know in the comments if you have an idea of why Greninja was paired with Gliscor a lot, because Gliscor's not as commonly used as a mon. It's only at 14th. But it is the second most common, actually ties for first most common partner for Greninja, so I don't exactly know why. And lastly, we have Mega Skarmory as the dominant steel type of this format. There's really not other steel types. It was Mega Skarmory and Goodra were the big steel types of this format. And, just a big reason for its success were its stats. It gets Tailwind, but it also just gets strong moves like Brave Bird and Iron Head, and it gets Roost for recovery. There's a lot of different things you can do with it, and it just definitely has one of the best stat spreads out of any Mega in this metagame. Often paired with Infernape, that makes sense, something to resist the Fire-type moves. Floette also makes sense as a partner for it because of Fantasy Core, where you want to have a Dragon type, a Steel type, and a Fairy type, because that covers a lot of your bases in a match. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show it on the graphic, but there's a huge tie for second place for best teammates for Mega Skarmory, because Floette, Arcanine, Rotom, Klefki, Crocodile, and Noivern, and Liepard, and Tauros Aqua all have the same amount of usage next to Mega Skarmory, but the big one is that Infernape. 1/3 of Mega Skarmory teams used Infernape. Tournament time! I woke up at 7 a.m. for round 1, tired, but ready to play. My round 1 opponent, however, was not. As I said, they hadn't even built their team yet, and they forfeited on the spot. I'll take the free win, but I'm also a little disappointed that I didn't get a proper fight. My round 2 opponent had Chandelure as their only mega, but what really worried me was their Hisuian Goodra with Shelter, Body Press, and Heavy Slam. It could tear through my team if I gave it the chance to set up. I decided to leave my Sand duo as they led with Tauros Aqua and the dreaded Goodra. I was banking on Altaria and Quillfish scaring off Tauros since they both wall it, but they still ended up leading with it, and now it was my problem to deal with it. Allowing them to set up a shelter for free, though hopefully Quillfish's Intimidate will keep Altaria safe from Heavy Slam. Now it was my turn to go on the attack, using Icy Wind and Hyper Voice on the Goodra while Tauros protected. I repeated this play as Chandelure switched in, chipping it, while also bringing down Goodra to half health, who proceeded to retaliate by knocking out Altaria with Heavy Slam. I brought in Hippowdon and switched Quillfish into Lycanroc as they switched Chandelure into Floette. They protected the Goodra for more leftovers recovery, but I had predicted this, bringing Floette down to red with a high horsepower. Lycanroc was able to take down Floette as Goodra was brought down to red by the Hippo. Because of Goodra's body press, Lycanroc was now down to Sash. Sand ended, making this a good opportunity to switch out Hippowdon and get an Intimidate off of my own with Quillfish. I swapped back into Hippowdon and Gungshotted the Tauros, as Hippowdon took the double up from my opponent. Gungshot finished off Tauros, and High Horsepower finished off Goodra. It's Goodra. And the Chandelure in the back was unable to beat my 3 remaining Pokemon. I learned from my erroneous lead game 1, and started off game 2 with Altaria and Quillfish, as they led the same thing again, Tauros and Goodra. My game plan this time was to keep Altaria safe from Heavy Slam by Intimidate cycling. Ah, good old Intimidate cycling. So, I flip turn to save and Intimidate for later, as Altaria does what it does best. Hyper Voice! Dealing good damage to Goodra while the Tauros protected. I send out Quillfish for another Intimidate as they swap Tauros for Superior, making it an easy Gunk Shot target next turn. My Intimidation worked, forcing Goodra to swap out while Superior went down to the Gunk Shot. The rest of this game goes in my favor, as my faster Pokemon are able to whittle down theirs until I'm able to win. I am now 2-0. In round 3, I was going up against another Altaria team, but this one had Mega Lucario as well, which would be strong into my Altaria. I decided to go for my Chimecho mode this time around since it had good matchups into both their Megas. I led Quillfish and Chimecho as they led Liepard and Feraligatr. Even though they were threatening Fake Out, I predicted that they would Fake Out the Quillfish, who couldn't, and I tried to get a cheeky Trick Room up. I was wrong. They doubled into Chimecho and dealt more damage than I was expecting to take this turn. Quillfish's flip turn did half to Liepard, and allowed me to reposition into Hippowdon so I could start chipping their health down with the Sand. I hoped a second Intimidate would allow Chimecho to survive a double up. Once again, though, I was wrong, allowing Chimecho to go down without having done anything. At least now I had the Sand set up for like, fearing my 2 faster mons, they double swapped into Lucario and Superior, where my Gunk Shot gets blocked by the Steel type and the Rock Slide only does minimal damage. While this may have seemed like a good defensive pivot for them, it ended up screwing them over, as Gunk Shot and Close Combat took them both out, and their remaining low health Pokemon were no match for me. Disappointed by Chimecho's performance, I switched to Altaria for game 2, leading it with Quillfish as they sent out Liepard and Superior. A really advantageous position for me, since both their mons are weak to mine, as I OHKO the Snake with Gunk Shot, and Altaria flinches from Liepard's Fake Out. They surprised me by bringing out their own Altaria. Okay, but like, what if I just Gunk Shotted again? Anyway, you're dead now! They're already down to their last 2 mons while I was still at full health, making it an easy cleanup for me. My round 4 opponent had a Mega Pokemon I was really hoping to dodge. Mega Skarmory. I didn't realize this until the start of the tournament, but Mega Skarmory walls a good portion of my team, since my usual solution to Steel types was to use Hippowdon. And that wasn't the only nasty Steel type they had, also had Goodra. To make matters worse, their Infinite had a faster Fake Out than my Liepard, so I couldn't bank on Fake Out to set up Trick Room or Tailwind easily. Despite this, I attempted to still lead with Fake Out and Trick Room, but they led Infinite and Floette, faking out my Liepard and knocking out Deagleam. I do get the Trick Room up, but already being down a Mon is rough. If there's anyone who can save us now, it's gonna be the Hippo. The Infernape's Focus Sash means I have to double into it, allowing them to freely swap into Skarmory. They bring out Googdra, but since the room is tricky, high horsepower deals massive damage before they are able to shelter. Meanwhile, I get a lucky special defense drop on the Skarmory with Psychic. Thanks to this, I'm able to sweep through the rest of their team before Trick Room ends. For Game 2, I switched up my strategy, bringing the Sand Duo out first, but instead of leaving Floette, they bring out Goodra and the Monk. Their Fake Out allows them to get up a shelter, while I deal half of Infernape's health with Rock Slide. I take out their Infernape, and both Goodra and Hippowdon start setting up. Skarmory comes out and takes less damage from Rock Slide than I hoped, but it does flinch, as the setup war between Goodra and Hippowdon continues. This begins a long battle of both me and my opponent trying to recover our Pokemon's HP while trading blows between our two tanks. At one point, Goodra body presses Lightning Rock, allowing me to bring Skarmory down to 1 HP with Endeavor, however not before Hippowdon goes down. I can finish off the Skarmory with Fake Out, but by this point, I have no way to break through the tank that is Goodra, and I lose Game 2. Once again, disappointed by Chimecho, I pivot to an Altaria-based strategy, hoping to use Fake Out to get speed control. And since they didn't lead Infernape, I'm able to get away with the Tailwind. But I do take a bit of damage from Feraligator's Rock Slide. My game plan is to allow Altaria to break through Skarmory with Fake Tears, so I protect and Fake Tears, however Liepard's low defensives means it drops to a single liquidation. Unfortunately, they just swap out to reset the stat drops, and they're able to whittle down the rest of my Pokemon, handing me my first loss of the tournament. Now, I could do a whole big recap on my round 5, but it just basically went the same as round 4, meaning I got my ass kicked. It was another Mega Skarmory team. Neither the Chimecho mode nor the Altaria mode could handle it. There will be a link to the full tournament playlist in the description if you want to watch my recordings of each match, so if you feel like you're missing out because I skipped this round, feel free to take a look, but trust me, there's not much to see. Maybe I'm just saying that because I don't like people seeing me lose, but genuinely, I think that was just a rough match and wasn't fun to play, wasn't fun to watch. I begin round 6 by crashing out again because I'm facing another Skarmory, oh my gosh! Luckily, this one is just base Skarmory instead of Mega. I'm facing a Trick Room team with Mega Crabominable and the ever-popular Mega Chandelure. My plan going into Game 1 was to prevent them from getting Trick Room up by targeting down Slowbro, their only Trick Room setter, by using Altaria and Fake Tears Liepard, Fake Out the Slowbro, and hit it with Hyper Voice as the crab protects itself. Fake Tears and another Hyper Voice finishes off the Slowbro as Crabominable swaps out into Hippowdon to avoid the Fairy move. And now that they've lost access to Trick Room, it's easy for me to take the dub, as I continue just to spam Hyper Voice and kill their whole team. I was pretty happy that they didn't bring Skarmory this game, and hoped that would continue on to the next. It did. They leave the Cursed Bird next to Chandelure, as I Fake Out and Tailwind, but I take significant damage on Altaria thanks to their Shadow Ball. They protect Chandelure and match Tailwind as I do some chip into Skarmory, but now they've left themselves vulnerable to my Encore. But only one of them can be Encored, so I must choose wisely. I choose to Encore Skarmory, but both Pokemon stay in, and Heatwave Oko's Liepard due to a crit. I continue to Hyper Voice, but it's not doing enough into their 2 resists. I bring out Quillfish and finish off Skarmory, but Chandelure protects itself and my Tailwind runs out a turn before theirs, allowing them to get a double knockout on the next turn. And with just Lycanroc left, I don't have enough in the tank left to win Game 2. I decide to switch up my lead to Quillfish and Liepard, as they do the same lead they did in Game 2. I Fake Out the Skarmory as I attempt to flip turn the Chandelure, but it protects. This is all part of the plan, as now Shandy has to swap out into Rotom to avoid Encore. Quillfish flip turns and brings in Altaria as they set up Tailwind, again leaving them vulnerable to Encore. I keep him honest with Encore as they don't switch out, and I match Tailwind as Thunderbolt does little damage to the now non-flying type Altaria. With Skarmory unable to Iron Head, I begin the Fake Tears plus Hyper Voice beatdown, taking out Rotom. Their Shandy comes back out as I swap out Altaria into Lycanroc, as I learned my lesson that keeping my Fairy type in front of the 2 resists is not conducive to winning. And I foul play the Chandelure, doing 2/3 of the Ghost's HP. They Heat Wave, but Liepard manages to dodge it, making up for the crit last game. They protect and Tailwind as I do a sizable amount of Skarmory's HP. They're really making these Encores easy for me. I'm once again forced to make a decision on who to encore, and I choose right, as I encore Skarm once again as they swap out Chandelure. And with that momentum gained, it's pretty trivial for me to take the win on this round. And that's it! I finished with a record of 4 wins, 2 losses. Nothing else to see here. Fuck. Yeah, I lied. There was a round 7, and I don't want to talk about it. Can you tell I dislike talking about my losses? I guess I'll give you a quick little summary of the game. It was a Chimecho Trick Room mirror, but they also had Mega Chestnut. And basically my Chimecho lost by doing absolutely nothing. A trend for it. It did not do a lot for me in this tournament. I was very disappointed in it. Again, link in the description below if you want to see full tournament replays. I'm done with my recap. I don't want to make this video go on too long now, or I'll get burnt out and take another year break from video making. And I don't want to do that again. So now that you've seen how my run in the tournament went, I want to show off the top cut, because I think it's very interesting to see what succeeded in this tournament, because actually it's very different from what was popular. Because if we look at the stats, Klefki was the most used Pokemon. Its highest placement was 5th. Liepard didn't even break top 8. And neither did Noivern. Noivern's highest placement was number 20. So that's kind of not what you'd expect. Usually you'd expect the most common Pokemon to be also the most common in top cut. But that wasn't quite the case. So here we see our 8th place team, and it has Starmie, that common Mega, but it also has Ampharos, which, what was Ampharos's usage rate in the tournament? 4%, which isn't bad, which isn't like horrible, but it wasn't the most common, so it was kind of cool to see Ampharos succeed. It's got Choice Scarf Gardevoir, it's got regular Malamar because Mega Malamar is banned, and it uses that as a Trick Room setter for Ampharos. And then Infernape and Ariados, 2 of the best supporters in this metagame. Infernape with that fake out, and Ariados being, I think it's one of only 2 redirectors in the format. I think it's just it and Scovillain, and regular Scovillain, of course, because Mega Scovillain is banned. 7th place. This one's actually interesting. It's got Rhyperior on it. Hashowberry, Solid Rock Rhyperior with Mega Horn. Interesting. And Life Orb for Alligator, not Mega for Alligator. Its Mega of choice, it only has 1 Mega, and it's Mega Metacham. I guess that makes sense. Its pure power ability is going to be super strong. It's kind of similar to Starmie, but it gets Fake Out. And then I think the rest of the team is just doing damage. Where you've got Fake Out to help the Dragon Dance set up. You've got Choice Scarf Florges. And you've got a Snarl on Howdoom, but it can also do good damage with Heat Wave and Dark Pulse. And then Ariados again being a supporter. 6th place, we've got Beedrill! I think that's pretty cool that we can see Beedrill get some success, because, you know, it's typically not very good. But it makes sense, because just adaptability and being the fastest thing in the format, especially in this much lower power format, means Beedrill can get a lot more of the kills it needs to. And it's also paired with Torterra, which I think is pretty cool with Shell Smash. Of course, we've got Chandelure. I think this is actually the only Chandelure in Top Cut as well, which is interesting. And then Paldea Tauros Aqua and Gengar. It's in Prison Trick Room, actually, so it's really trying to be an anti-Trick Room Gengar. In 5th place, another Starmie. Another Starmie. We've got just a lot of the... This is probably one of the most meta teams I've seen here, and I say meta for this meta specifically. But, I mean, all of these Pokemon are in, like, the top 15 most used Pokemon. Interesting is Akaberry on Motom. I think that's pretty cool. Alright, we've got Mega Golurk. I love to see Mega Golurk do well. This is like a hard Trick Room team. Yeah, this is hard Trick Room. All of these Pokemon are slow. It's got Hydrapple, it's got Mudsdale. I think this is pretty cool. I'm surprised I don't have any form of like Fake Out to help set up Trick Room, but I guess a lot of these Pokemon are bulky enough, especially in this lower power format, Interesting. Ice Punch on Golurk, even though you have Crabominable. I guess, I'm sure there's some matchups where that just makes sense. We've got our third place. We got Mega Altaria. I'm glad to know Mega Altaria was able to do good, because that my Mega Altaria call was at least somewhat validated by this. It's also got Skeledirge. I love Skeledirge as a Pokemon. I wish I got to actually play it ever, but it's unfortunately just a little, like, too slow. We've got Empoleon, Superior, a lot of starter Pokemon here. We got Toxicroak and Weirder. A lot, like, none of these are very common mons. I think Superior is the only one that breaks into the top 20 out of this team. Hyper Beam Altaria. Kind of just using it as sort of a Sylveon with Tailwind. I kind of like that. I kind of like that. It's just got a lot of, it's kind of Tail Room team, because it's got, Altaria has a slower Tailwind, so it can set up the Tailwind if it needs to, but it can also just make use of Trick Room if it needs to, and I think that's pretty cool. And they've got Fake Out to help set up either Tailwind or Trick Room, and kind of Superior as a sweeper. Empoleon also as a sweeper, with Surf, interestingly enough. Surf, Empoleon next to Dry Skin Toxicroak. I actually just realized that. That's pretty cool. Alright, our number 2 team. Again, another Starmie team. Starmie did do well in Top Cut, it seems. And again, a lot of what you expect to see, but I think the one big difference here is that Manectric, because it gives you the electric damage to deal with the Starmie Mirror, while also having Lightning Rod to deal with, like, something like a Moton, if you want to just bring base Manectric and then Mega Starmie and then have it be protected from electric moves. It's also got coaching on that Infernape. I don't know if the last Infernape Starmie team had coaching. I imagine it did. I didn't look enough. But yeah, I think this is a pretty cool one. Like, it's definitely a bit more leans towards the meta of this format, but it definitely, I think the Manectric makes it very interesting. And at number 1, this is not what I expected. We've got Pidgeot. Yeah, this tournament was run by Mega Pidgeot and a Galarian Slowbro. And notably, Chandelure is here, but it's not Mega Chandelure. It is just regular Chandelure. And that kind of makes sense, because with all the Mega Chandelure running around, you're going to run into some Heat Waves, and Flash Fire will block that. And then, I think the other off-meta pick here was that Galarian Slowbro with Quick Claw, Quick Draw, and kind of just being able to be a menace. Chandelure can set up Trick Room for it if it needs, but also since its ability, it could sometimes just go gambling and take some unexpected quick kills. But yeah, and Pidgeot with No Guard, Hurricane, and Heat Wave. It's a very interesting combo, and I'm surprised it's the only Mega on this team, but it seems like it paid off. Hi, welcome to my very professional outro that I definitely did not forget to record until right at the last minute before finishing up this video. So, basically, moral of the story is Chimecho kind of sucked, but the rest of the team was pretty cool. I think if I were to do this tournament again, I'd keep most of the team the same. I might try something like Chandelure over Chimecho, though. But overall, really fun tournament, and I'm looking forward to more wacky tournament content that I'm going to make in the future. So if you liked this, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more. Bye!